From the desert to the world, you're listening to an encore presentation of K-News Radio, the desert's news talk superstation.
8:20, Thursday night, the Bill Feingold Show. Bulldog and Kevin, and one of our favorite guests, one of our all-time favorite guests, is back to speak about another book that his fabulous publishing company, Blood Moon Publishing, has come out with. We welcome to the microphone again, Danforth Prince.
Yes, Bill, how very nice of you to have me on. Hello, Palm Springs. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Oh, we love to have Danforth on the phone. And the name of this book, Danforth, is a very controversial thing. J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson, investigating the sexual secrets of America's most famous men and women. And Darwin Porter, of course, wrote the book. You know, did he write the whole book?
Yes, he did indeed. I was not a co-author of this one.
Right.
This was absolutely Darwin. And he's been compiling it, of course, for 15 or 20 years, and he's been hanging out with friends within the FBI for a long, long time.
Right.
And it really is a hell of a book. It's a 560-page paperback, and it takes the full career of J. Edgar Hoover into account over the many eras of his horrible life.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I didn't go see the movie because I never felt that. I heard the movie wasn't good. Leonardo DiCaprio, to me, could not be J. Edgar Hoover with all the makeup in the world. But I have to compliment you on page 411 of this fabulous book, J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson.
Uh-huh.
There is the world's worst picture of Roy Cohn, and I'm very happy to see it. I mean, he looks like a corpse, and it should have happened sooner.
Yeah, now that's very interesting. Darwin knew a lot about Roy Cohn because Roy Cohen's best friend was Jay Guerin, who was Darwin Porter's literary agent.
Oh.
So Roy Cohen was very, very close to Jay, and Jay was very close to Darwin, and of course everybody in New York was fascinated by Roy Cohen during his peak years.
Including Miss Barbara Walters.
Indeed. And I think I used to get into Studio 54 because Roy Cohen had written a letter allowing me to be placed on the guest list at Studio 54. And although I never met Roy directly, I was always allowed into Studio 54 because somehow I was on Roy Cohen's guest list.
Now, I was on the guest list, too, so we must have been there. My friend Gilbert Lesser, the late great, did the logo for Studio, and he did all the invitations for the big parties.
Oh, I can see the logo right now, those block letters. Yes, indeed.
That's right.
Fun place it was. I miss it.
Oh, there's never going to be anything again like that.
There never will.
No, and it's probably a good thing for America.
I'm surprised we survived.
Now, because I have some questions I want to ask you, but what if people get J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson by Darwin Porter? What do you think people should come away with about J. Edgar Hoover? Because the movie, from what I hear, Clint Eastwood skipped most of their lives.
Well, to the credit of the movie, it is indeed a movie with, I think, a 2 or 2.5 hour time frame. The career of J. Edgar spanned at least 60 years, 6 presidencies. It just went on forever, and you couldn't begin to encapsulate the hard factual data that was about J. Edgar Hoover's life and career into a movie anyway. But the bigger question is that the movie really was rather shy, rather delicate, rather well-mannered about slipping around the great key that really feeds into making sense of J. Edgar Hoover's life and his mystery is that indeed he was a gay man. He was indeed a closeted gay man. He was terrified of it. He overcompensated. And if you look at his life and the mysteries which when you get the big key that indeed you factor into the equation that he was indeed a closeted man doing everything he could to evade exposure, a lot of his life suddenly makes sense. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of books about the life of J. Edgar Hoover. Many of them have been written by insiders within the FBI, and each, of course, reflects the point of view of the author. There has never been a book, though, written from the Lavender hip point of view of a writer, an acknowledged gay man, Darwin Porter, by the way, a proud gay man who taps into the Lavender underground of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and also into the 20s and the 30s through secondhand interviews with hip artists and movers and shakers in media who were indeed living the Lavender underground at the era when J. Edgar Hoover was, let's say some things, sitting at a table in the Stork Club in Manhattan, gossiping with Walter Winchell, meeting movie stars. hanging out with Clyde Tolson as his date, with various supermodels of their era coming up for photo ops to give the impression to America that this was indeed a straight man leading a straight life and for Family Values America. It really wasn't that way at all. Again, a lot of the bizarre things about J. Edgar were exposed through gossip of the underground that really talked about him at dinner parties, who really among themselves babbled about who was being exposed sexually, who was being threatened by blackmail. I think there's a karmic lesson in this, that if you set about to embarrass everyone who comes under your orbit, there will be a karmic justice that they will
coming back, yeah.
get back at you, yes, and tell stories. And people did talk, and all it took was for some dedicated researcher, in this case Darwin Porter, was to collate the anecdotes, index them for the library trade, and hopefully add it to the canon of America's understanding about this bizarre era called law enforcement under the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover.
He was a very strange man. I have a couple of questions to ask you. One of the things that I had never thought of was that, according to this book, J. Edgar Hoover had a big crush on Desi Arnaz.
That is very interesting. Who documented that? As it happened, he and Clyde, J. Edgar and Clyde, would double date with Lucy and Desi. Lucy, of course, was never faithful. Desi was never faithful to Lucy.
Wasn't. Lucy was faithful.
I guess. Yes, usually. But one witness of that was Joseph Mankiewicz, the movie producer, who spread all over Hollywood that one day at the Belmar racetrack, J. Edgar took Desi into a men's toilet at Belmar racetrack, and they disappeared together for a long, long time.
Well, maybe it was crowded.
That story came from Joseph Mankiewicz,
wow.
And many other stories about Desi's having been strip searched by the FBI when he was arrested, having been threatened with deportation back to Cuba. The FBI pulled out cameras and photographed Desi nude. He told everyone. J. Edgar Hoover got hold of the pictures of Desi nude and added them to his collection of pornography. But the source on that really was Joseph Mankiewicz, who told Le Tout Hollywood, everyone in Hollywood, about this anecdote. So the anecdotes really are sourced at the point in the book where they appear. Darwin, I think, was very, very clear on laying out his sources as to the source of each anecdote of the thing that he drew upon.
But when we're talking about Desi Arnaz, I got the impression from the book that J. Edgar was so annoyed that he and Desi weren't an item that's when he said, of course, Lucille Ball had red hair and yada yada. She was a communist.
Oh, he said yes, indeed, and I think it shows what a showman that Lucy was, because she and Desi, during a live audience, was appropriately penitent in front of the studio audience, and I think Desi said in front of the studio audience for the I Love Lucy show that the only thing red about Lucy is her hair, and even that's artificial.
Right, and then it all passed over because Lucille Ball was not a communist. I mean, that was J. Edgar and the
attempt to vindictive. Yes, he was indeed very vindictive. He also read movie columns voraciously. He really did read Luella Parsons, who the Hollywood columnist, of course.
Yeah. She was a bitch. Yeah,
such a bitch. Yeah. And Hedda Hopper was her rival, who was rabidly right wing. It's interesting that when J. Edgar Hoover needed a female beard, one of the women that he chose as his beard was Leela Rogers, who was the mother of Ginger Rogers, who was slightly to the right of Attila the Hun.
Oh, that's a good place to be, to the right of Attila. Yeah, yeah, right.
And Clyde Tolson evidently developed a lifelong hatred of FDR because FDR, for one of his birthday celebrations, invited J. Edgar Hoover to the White House and said, "Don't bring that guy you're always with. Bring a woman this time. Why don't you bring a woman this time?" So J. Edgar brought Leela Rogers, very colorful, very right-wing, very good aim with the rifle she was. She edited the newspaper for the Marine Corps, I believe, for a while. And Clyde Tolson, who was left at home fuming, developed a lifelong hatred of FDR because he was excluded from that birthday party in favor of Leela Rogers.
Well, now we're talking to the fabulous Danforth Prince. His publishing company is Blood Moon Publishing. The name of the book, J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson, Investigating the Sexual Secrets of America's Most Famous Men and Women, by Darwin Porter. You have to hold on. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, one of Kevin's favorite performers is accused in this book of buying lingerie for J. Edgar Hoover, and I believe it's Ethel Merman.
Ethel.
So think about, because do you know when Ethel Merman had got a sore throat, she had to go to the gynecologist? And that's a true story. You can put that in any book. I will stand by that story. Danforth Prince, hold on, we'll be right back. You're listening to the Bill Feingold Show with Kevin Holmes, 94.3 K News. And we're joined tonight by one of our favorite people, Danforth Prince.
Hello.
Hello, Danforth. And Danforth has a fabulous publishing company, Blue Moon Publishing, and the name of the book...
Blood Moon.
Blood Moon, that's what I said.
Moon,
I said
yes.
Blue Moon, didn't I?
Yeah, that's the beer.
It's Blood Moon. And the name of the book is J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson, Investigating the Sexual Secrets of America's Most Famous Men and Women. It's by Darwin Porter. And how do people buy this lovely book?
Oh, that's very nice to say. It's on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. It's online. It's in stores. It's out there. Google it on the internet. It comes up in all the sources. We're very lucky to have good distribution through the National Book Network. They're very nice to us.
Well, that's great. Well, you write very interesting books because you go to the underbelly of people's lives, so to speak.
We're one of the few people, I think, that does it in quite this style. We're very committed to it. I mean, I really set up the company with that as the corporate mission.
Okay.
I think I run more of a grassroots social organization than I do a conventional publishing house. But there are people who worked in showbiz, entertainment columnists, etc., who had perfectly productive, reputable careers who were frustrated that they could never really tell the truth about the underground underbelly aspect. And one of the ones that came out so loudly in this book is the gay aspects of law enforcement as represented by J. Edgar Hoover. So, I mean, so closeted, and nobody is really comfortable to talk about it. So it's like opening a dam suddenly that if you approach the life of J. Edgar Hoover and don't have that deep, dark terror of mentioning the sexual or the gay side to it, the doors open and suddenly hundreds of voices come in to add to the chorus.
Well, if this book, J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson, was made into a movie, it would be rated X, NC-17. I mean, if it followed all the stories.
Well, we do write for adults. Yeah,
right.
we ain't exactly family-friendly children's stuff. Yeah,
right.
we're more on the Larry Flint side, actually.
Yeah. Now, before I talk about Ethel Merman, because the story is fabulous in the book about Ethel Merman, rumor has hit us that your company, Blood Moon, is looking into Kevin and my life, and we're really nervous. I mean, I know our radio show is taking off. It's very popular.
But
I don't
popular.
think America...
Yes, and you're very nice to have me on it.
But is it true that you're looking into our lives so that we too could be a 581-page book?
Yes, and I'm casting male figures of great heroism to play you. And I'm off that new Frenchman, Jean Desjardins, that I like so much from The Artist.
Oh, that would be
good.
Kevin. And see, no, George Clooney, because we're twins. George Clooney plays me. And George Clooney said he would like to play a gay role in the movie if the script were proper.
How stylish of him. Well, how good. Yes,
okay,
I'll work with him.
Now tell people about J. Edgar Hoover and our favorite. Kevin can't get enough of Ethel Merman.
Well, Darwin met Ethel Merman through his good friend Anne Bancroft, back before she married Mel Brooks.
Right.
Mel and blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Anne was close friends with Stanley Haggart, who was Darwin's longtime companion for a long, long time. And so Ethel was very hip. I mean, very show business, very Broadway. Belt a song out and get it into the 10th balcony with no trouble at all. And,
yeah,
like
she was never mic'd. Never mic'd. You couldn't mic her.
You couldn't. Yeah. She wouldn't. Yeah. But these are very sophisticated people who was not. She was not all shocked by J. Edgar being a closeted gay man, and very supportive. And in fact, I think she referred to herself as a lesbian every other weekend, and she was rather well known for an affair she had with the British comedian B. Lilly.
B. Lilly, the famous, yes. B. Lilly was fabulous.
And they would sit around a table at the Stork Club, and Ethel would be
nice.
A lot of people were at the tables, and a lot of people had slept with a lot of people at those tables. Let me see. Ethel had slept with Sherman Billingsley, who owned the Stork Club, and then B. Lilly would be drinking lager, and Ethel would be drinking champagne, and Edgar and Clyde would be there with them all, and they'd be having a merry good time, and nobody cared who had been sleeping with whom all these times. So Ethel is a showbiz, fabulous broad, a great woman. loud, vulgar, usually the kind of woman that J. Edgar would not have approved of.
You would have thought she and Ernie Borgnine would have lasted longer.
Oh, and isn't that an interesting marriage? I think it lasted for 10 minutes, and in her autobiography, I don't think she mentioned him.
Well, she didn't mention him, but the truth, on the honeymoon, she got undressed, and he said, "Oh, I'm out of here."
I think so. But she was very sophisticated about all matters human and vulnerable, and I think it is said that she indeed took J. Edgar shopping for some of his cross-dressing tastes, and she'd say, "This would look good on me. Do you have it in a, you have the shoe in a size 12?" So that is one of dozens and dozens of sources that fed into the makeup of this book. Dorothy Lamour was another one of their fag hags. J. Edgar, forgive that vulgar word, but they really would sit down and gossip about Hollywood, blah blah, with Dorothy Lamour.
Right.
Dorothy Lamour, by the way, was dating Tyrone Power and wanted advice on his,
hello,
J. Edgar, you're my
nice.
father figure. Tell me what Tyrone Power is really like. And J. Edgar unleashed a flood of negative information about Tyrone's sexual habits with men, and other perversions of his, call it if you will, and Dorothy never spoke to Tyrone Power ever again.
Well, sure, because he was carrying disease.
And if I were a hip woman in Hollywood and could pick an ally, what better ally could a hip woman in Hollywood have than J. Edgar Hoover to fight her battles and keep the authorities and malefactors at bay? What a good idea. Clever woman she was.
Yes, Danforth Prince, the name of the book, is J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tulson by Darwin Porter. It's the kind of book that I had on my night table, and every night I would just say, now what's going to happen? It's unbelievable, from Roy Cohn to JFK to Marilyn Monroe to, everybody's in this book.
Well, it's fascinating that more of these kinds of books are not being published. I mean, we should be one of many, many books coming out with these stories. It's amazing how uptight people are about getting things into print.
So, in other words, you don't think that Barbara Walters will have you on The View to talk about this book?
Oh, how nice if she would. We'd certainly treat her with the greatest respect she would be due.
So, before we say goodnight, Danforth, who do you know what book you're working on next? Who Darwin Porter is working on?
Yes, he has 3 books in the works, one for release in June, another for September, the other for January. They've all been being researched for years. The next book coming out is Marilyn at Rainbow's End. It's a compendium of the murder conspiracies associated with the death of Marilyn Monroe.
Right. Okay.
Quite a book. And after that, there's the Hollywood Babylon Guide to Elizabeth Taylor.
Don't you go against my Elizabeth Taylor.
We adore her. We call her... she's everybody's favorite dame, they say.
That's right. She was a good broad, Elizabeth. And who's the third person?
These are all great broads who deserve to be treated with the love and respect that they have. And in January, a book I'm very excited about is it's called Inside Linda Lovelace's Deep Throat.
Oh, and of course, that's when the movie will probably be coming out next year.
Indeed. The secondary title of this one is called Degradation, Porno Chic, and the Rise of Feminism, from Blood Moon Productions by Darwin Porter. Darwin was very friendly with Harry Reams, who was
he was a great star.
In Deep Throat.
He could act too. He was excellent.
And he could act.
Yes,
he was funny.
Yeah. So
but
now
we do have a strong agenda of books that really does illuminate the alternative side of Hollywood from its golden age up until the 1980s and 90s.
Okay,
we are salvaging these oral histories in a rather blunt way while we can do it still, while the source material is still alive. Our ambition is to have these books stand proudly on library shelves in universities next to other film resources.
Calling a book by Darwin Porter an oral history, there's got to be a joke in there, but I can't use it on the radio. But the name of the book is J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tulson, and it's by Darwin Porter, and you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Its publishing company is Blood Moon Publishing, and we love you, Danforth Prince. And as long as I know that you're not doing a book on Kevin and me yet, the book would be about me.
I think it would be marvelous if we make it suitably heroic, and I would strongly control the editorial content. That one I would control.
Yeah, I could tell you stories about me and Merv Griffin. Of course, he's not here to deny it. And what can I tell you? So
you really, we did his biography about 3 years ago. Heavens, we should have known you then.
Oh well, I don't know. His on the deathbed, he said, "I'm sorry, I never met Bulldog." And he closed his eyes.
And on my deathbed, baby, I will say how happy I am that I did.
Oh, well, thank you, Danforth Prince. We love you, and we're looking forward to your next book, and we're looking forward to having you on the show again. So thanks for joining.
From the desert to the world, you're listening to an encore presentation of K News Radio, the desert's news talk superstation.